Welcome into the Fantasy Football Diagnostics Podcast, where we provide you with your weekly diagnosis of everything fantasy football. Whether it's season-long leagues, dynasty, DFS, or sometimes even IDP, we got you covered all year long. Let's do it. Let's get to it. Welcome into the Fantasy Football Diagnostics Podcast. And of course, I'm your host, John June. And of course, I got my guy, Greg Penniman, hit the Millie. Greg, what's up, bro?
Millie Rock one time. You already know, because we dancing. We got to dance like these wide receivers. They have the best celebrations. So for the wide receivers today, we're going to be dancing all day.
Yes, sir. Wide receiver position. If you have not been listening to the positional breakdowns, then you need to go back and do that, because I don't know why you would do that to yourself and deprive yourself of some fantasy goodness here. But we have done our quarterbacks. We've done running backs, running through top 12, sleepers, busts, breakouts, my guys. And, we're just getting through the whole gamut, Greg. But like you said, covering wide receivers. But before that, we got to get into a little bit of news, man.
True.
And first news of the day, which came actually maybe like a few days after we finished our running back episode, was I was pretty excited about it. I know you are as a Giants fan. Saquon Barkley returned to Giants practice, removed from the PUP. I mean, he's still limited, but he's getting back into the swing of things. Talked about maybe getting some of the veteran linebackers to deliver some contact to him, so he can get back to using, to getting his confidence as a football player and getting confidence in that knee. But Greg, what are your thoughts now that, obviously we know Saquon Barkley is practicing for the Giants?
Yeah, man, it's definitely exciting news. We mentioned how kind of went back and forth on when Saquon's return date would be. It's definitely very up in the air, very 50-50 right now, but that's definitely a first step to getting to that week 1 target date, which would be ideal for Saquon and Giants fans like myself. So, I'm excited. I'm excited to see where he's going to go. I still think, the Giants really want to take this long-term approach for Saquon, so they're going to take his time. I'm still with that week 2, week 3 return date. Any type more games that he can get, more carries, more production for Saquon, it's dope.
I'm like of the frame of mind. I know that, Greg, you know this. I think he plays week 1. I felt like the injury happened so long ago, so early in the season last year, and then we saw the videos of him in rehab, and then Ian Rappaport had a report the other day that no one is completely ruling out week 1. So week 2, week 3 definitely is in the range of outcomes. But maybe it's the optimism in me. I do think he will be out there for week 1, but we will have to wait and see.
Yes, sir.
Another set of players that are thinking about being out there for week 1 out in Indianapolis, Carson Wentz and Quentin Nelson, both dealing with that foot injury. The same foot injury, which they both had surgery on, were given the same obtuse timetable of 5 to 12 weeks, but seems like they both have a chance potentially to play week 1. Greg, what are your thoughts on that?
This is definitely huge for this team. I mean, just a whole momentum shift for this team that, we thought maybe in this year would definitely battle with Tennessee for this division. And without Carson and Quentin, that definitely wasn't going to happen. They need all the games they could get. And with that first half of that schedule, oh, man, they really need all the help they can get. They're playing a very, very tough schedule in the beginning, first half of the season. So to have those two guys possibly back for week 1 definitely keeps their division hopes alive.
Yeah, and, to think if you are drafting now, or you've already drafted since that news has broken, you are potentially getting a discount on pretty much all of these players. I mean, Jonathan Taylor fell a little bit as a cause of both of those injuries, specifically the Quentin Nelson one. Michael Pittman's a guy that we'll probably dig into a little bit today, but he's a guy that is potentially a discount. Paris Campbell, who you were high on last year, also seen as a discount in this situation. So all of these guys for the Colts are, potentially back in play, especially even if they're not week 1, that you at least know it won't be week 5, week 6, week 7, right? Like you have an idea it'll be early in the season. Another guy dealing with an injury, Greg, the guy you and I both relatively high on. We took him in the St. Jude Bowl, which kicked off earlier last week, but Deandre Swift, he's dealing with a groin injury. Seems like he's day to day with that with that issue there. Are you concerned about Deandre Swift? I know we saw him get banged up at different times last year. Is this something that concerns you at this point?
Since it happened so early, it's still kind of basically a month to go. I think 29 days, 30 days. So, I'm hoping that he can be able to recover and come back within a couple weeks. At worst case scenario, if maybe he missed week 1 or week 2, but we don't want to speculate on that. But the groin injury is tricky. I'm not concerned because it is early in the year in the training camp. So I think he'll be back and healthy. We just got to keep locked in on those news, and because he's definitely got high hopes this year for fantasy managers.
No, absolutely. I mean, just definitely keep your eyes and your ears peeled for any news regarding Deandre Swift and this sore groin. But there seems like they're managing it. They're not letting him practice and miss time. So he has plenty of time, like you said, 20, 25, 20, 30 days, something like that, before the season opener to get healthy here and get right. Somebody else who's expected to miss probably some time, that is Rashad Bateman, who's also dealing with a groin injury. His seems to be of the more severe kind. John Harbaugh said he's expected to miss weeks, not months. So any concerns here with Rashad Bateman?
Yeah, same on that. Harbaugh did say, for week 1, he's still hopeful, quote. So this kind of the same realm of Swift, maybe that his injury was kind of a little worse. You haven't really heard any week 1 trouble for Swift, but Bateman, hopefully he's back by week 1 because he's also got some targets coming his way. Definitely going to help out this Ravens offense. But I wouldn't, again, keep your eye on that. But the fact that they're still hopeful is a good sign.
Yeah, no, I don't know if you saw this. Actually, this is news to me, but Darren Waller has missed 8 straight days of camp. The Raiders have not noted if this is injury related, but it's definitely something to keep note of. And Darren Waller is somebody that we'll obviously be talking about later this week. But anything else news-wise, Greg, that stuck out to you, or are you ready to kind of get into these wide receivers?
Yeah, no, nothing much. I mean, I know these depth charts are coming out. Just let the people know, don't pay attention to depth charts, and that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, this year, I just feel fortunate that we actually have preseason games because last year we were just reading reports. I know. We were just sending each other like screenshots from the Athletic of training camp reports and things like that. And it felt so weird to prognosticate on players because we trusted beat reporters more than we ever have, I think. And so I'm just fortunate to have preseason. Let's just say that.
For sure. Definitely.
All right, let's jump into these wide receivers. And so first, before we talk about the future, we've got to talk about the past, recap the top 12 wide receivers from 2020. This will be in terms of total fantasy points on the season. Devontae Adams, the wide receiver 1.
Yes, sir.
Tyreek Hill, wide receiver 2. Stephon Diggs came in at 3. Then DeAndre Hopkins, then Calvin Ridley. Justin Jefferson came in at 6. DK Metcalf 7. His teammate Tyler Lockett comes in at 8. Then we had Allen Robinson at 9. Adam Thielen comes in at 10. Then Mike Evans and Keenan Allen coming in at 12 to round it out. This is a pretty strong list. It's pretty good in my opinion.
Yeah.
Any which one of these guys, Greg? You got to pick somebody for me.
I don't have the answers, Sway. I don't know. I mean, I really don't. Recap that bottom 12 again, maybe.
So I'll give you 7 through 12. It was DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Allen Robinson, Adam Thielen, Mike Evans, and Keenan Allen.
I'm gonna go with Tyler Lockett. Think just DK is just gonna keep more elevating more just to be better, and just gotta expect that Tyler Lockett's gonna have to get those high touchdown mark to get that in that top 12 again. He had insane games, outlier games where he was getting like 20 receptions or close to that number. So I think he peels back a little bit too. He's still gonna be a top 20 play, but I think he just comes out of that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree there. Tyler Lockett had absurd production. I'm trying to look up the numbers here, but he was absolutely ridiculous in just
Yeah.
some games. I mean, pulling it up right now, there was 3 weeks: week 3 against Dallas, week 7 against Arizona, and week 17 against San Francisco. Those 3 weeks make up for 46% of Tyler Lockett's fantasy production in 2020.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
So you just have to think about that when you look at Tyler Lockett, his wide receiver 8 finish from last year, and when projecting him for 2020, just understanding that, or 2021, understanding that's probably going to be unlikely. And even if it is, you don't want that kind of inconsistency in your lineup on a week-to-week basis. I mean, you're obviously those upside weeks are there, right? Those 3 touchdown games, those literally win you weeks. But I know you and I, Greg, we both prefer just a bit more consistency than that. But it's always tempting when you're attached to Russell Wilson. But like you're saying, it depends on what the story you tell yourself, right? Do you believe that they're going to continue to throw the football more, right? Because if that volume continues to go up, like we did see the first 8 weeks of the season last year, I think there's room for both of these guys to coexist, right? Maybe DK Metcalf still takes that leap, right, and still gets to that 28 instead of a 25% target share like we saw it be for most of the year. Maybe it's like a 21% target share, something like that. So, definitely different ways to approach it here. I also think that when you look at, I think Adam Thielen is probably in the same boat.
Yeah, my other guess because of Jefferson
right?
and his impact. That's baby Moss right there. So, yeah, he's just going to keep elevating.
Yeah, exactly. So Justin Jefferson taking, it's almost like the same thing. You've got this offense that wants to run the ball probably more, but they've also got this young alpha wide receiver that they probably want to feed the ball to more. So both of those things have to come into play here. But let's jump into, I think we're going to have a debate.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I think we're having a debate here, but, I'm just going to start it, Greg. Tyreek Hill is my wide receiver 1 on the year heading into 2021. I mean, he was the wide receiver 2 in total fantasy points last year and fantasy points per game at 21.9 PPR points per game. He was just an absolute stud in 2020, 135 targets, 87 catches, 1,276 yards, and 15 touchdowns in just 15 games. Also added 123 rushing yards and 2 additional touchdowns on the ground. He's such a dynamic weapon in this Chiefs offense. Continues to be a go-to option at the wide receiver position for Patrick Mahomes, who we both believe is going to be the number 1 quarterback this year by a wide margin. And so, like we said, if those touchdowns go up, we're talking about a player that scored 17 last year. I mean, there's a possibility you could have a wide receiver who scored 20.
Yeah, man, that touchdown number is really hard to argue against. I have Devontae as 1. I really have Tyreek Hill, the flip-flop. So Devontae Adams is my number 1 receiver. Just the dominance of him getting that target number. I think he's going to lead the league and be a top 3 in targets again, top 3 in receptions, doing what he has to do. And in the red zone, he does get a touchdown production as well for himself. And Aaron Rodgers is a bad man. He's going to continue to do what he has to do in his last year as a Packer. So I see no limits for him and Devontae, as they might go out together. So you might see one of the greatest seasons of all time from a quarterback wide receiver combo.
Yeah, it's funny, right? Because Devontae was my number 1 guy going into last year. It wasn't too hot takey, but Michael Thomas was pretty much wherever you went, the wide receiver 1. But Devontae Adams was my guy, mainly because he was the only Packers option and would see a ton of targets in this offense. I am of the frame of mind that, they did add Amari Rodgers in the 3rd round. They do go out and get, Aaron Rodgers asked Randall Cobb specifically requested that he get traded for. So I think we see this, the same reason why I didn't have Michael Thomas as my wide receiver 1 last year. Probably the same reason I have Devontae Adams as my wide receiver 2 this year, because I think last year was at a necessity where I think we probably see them spread the wealth a little bit more. But you're still getting a stud with Devontae Adams. And honestly, the only reason why I'm even going with Tyreek Hill is because of the ceiling and the year that we're expecting from Mahomes. most other years, Davante Adams would be my universal wide receiver one.
Yeah, I got that point is definitely a good one because of the touchdown marks that it's going to correlate to Mahomes is going to be insane. That 20 mark might be unheard of, but it might be close to it. So that's going to be pretty
Not
good.
since Randy Moss did it back in 2007. We have not seen a 20 plus touchdown season from a wide receiver. But Davante Adams is my wide receiver too. I mean, I don't really have much to you said a lot, but just to really, 14 games this man played. He had 18 touchdowns, just a ridiculous number. He was first in targets per game at 10.6, first in receptions at 8.2, had a league leading 77.2% catch rate, which led all wide receivers or all players, or I shouldn't say all players, but all wide receivers. And he led all NFL wide receivers with a 33.9% target share. He was a beast. His main guy, Aaron Rodgers, is back, like you said. So, again, expecting another great season. But, Greg, who is your wide receiver two?
Oh, Tyreek Hill, back to you. That we just flip-flopped the 1 and 2. Tyreek Hill, again, I could just repeat what I said before, but he's a monster. He wants to get better, and we talked about last year. You noticed the consistency level of him. Previous years, people thought of him as more of a boom or bust player, but he's very consistent at this point. You're going to get consistent numbers, so you can't even put that argument for him. He has no weaknesses in his game. He's so fast, so quick. This man should have been in Tokyo, man. That's all I had to say.
So, this is going to be interesting because I feel like we should have the same wide receiver three.
Yeah.
Again, okay,
we should.
We should. Stephon Diggs is my wide receiver three.
Yes, sir.
Okay. It was a crazy – Greg, this was crazy because we're going to play some ADP game today if we got some time. But do you remember the ADP game we played last year?
Yeah, Diggs was definitely one of them. It was Diggs or someone. I can't remember the or, but Diggs was –
man. Wait. It was Keenan Allen.
Okay, all right. I thought I was gonna say someone even worse, but that's not as bad. But yeah, Diggs
it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad if you look at obviously Keenan Allen's year, what he had with Justin Herbert.
Right.
But in fairness to us, both of these guys were ranked near the wide receiver 20 range. Nobody really wanted them because of their quarterbacks. That was the thing about Stephon Diggs. Oh, Josh Allen. Well, yeah, Josh Allen. But both of these guys were absolute studs, especially Stephon Diggs. Led the NFL in targets with 166. He was third in targets per game, first in receptions, second in receptions per game, and he was second in catch rate, 76.5%. First in receiving yards, third in fantasy points per game at 20.5 PPR points. And his quarterback, who we referenced before, Josh Allen, is a bad man who only has eyes for his wide receiver one. So I don't see many range of outcomes here where Diggs is not a top 3 wide receiver. There's one guy that I got trying to beat down the door, but I'll reveal that when we get into the top 12s. But what do you got to say about Stephon Diggs there?
Yeah, man, I have him close to that 160 target number again, right around there. I see no reason why he's going to be close to top 3 in leading receptions last year. I see no reason why he can't do that again this year. And yeah, he's going to continue to ball out, get his touchdowns, even with the emergence of Gabriel Davis a little more. I think he still is going to dominate the looks of Josh Allen. The progression is Stephon Diggs. The second progression is Stephon Diggs. And then third maybe is like Cole Beasley or something like that. But yeah, so Stephon Diggs all the way.
When in doubt, Stephon Diggs. On the scramble drill, Stephon Diggs.
True. That's a fact.
All right, let's get into the top 12 here. I'm gonna reveal my top 12 wide receivers. Tyreek Hill, like I mentioned, wide receiver 1. Davante Adams 2. Stephon Diggs 3. The guy I mentioned beating down the door as the wide receiver 3, Calvin Ridley. Keenan Allen's my wide receiver 5. DeAndre Hopkins 6. Justin Jefferson 7. AJ Brown 8. Allen Robinson 9. DK Metcalf 10. CeeDee Lamb 11, and I have Mike Evans as my wide receiver 12 rounded.
I like it a lot. Davante 1, Adams for me, Tyreek Hill 2, Stephon Diggs, my number 3 wide receiver. My number 4, I'm going with my man Justin Jefferson at 4, 5, Calvin Ridley, 6, AJ Brown, 7, DeAndre Hopkins, 8, Keenan Allen, 9, DK Metcalf. After that, 10, Scary Terry. You already know Terry McLaurin. And then I got my man 11, Allen Robinson, steady. He's always around that bottom of the wide receiver 1 pack. And then number 12, CeeDee Lamb to round it out.
Oh man, I like this. This is gonna be a fun show. I mean, they're all fun, but
yeah,
I think year in, year out, our wide receiver show is probably the most anticipated, because that's when we get the fun debates. We get some stats. We get, because these guys are fun. They're athletic. They're fun. There's different flavors to them. Yeah. You could have your steady PPR guy. You could have your guy that goes down the field. Your touchdown maker. So it's really up to you and your flavor. But we're talking about sleepers here at this point. Yes, so there's a ton of guys we could probably pick for this spot, Greg. But I'll go first. Brandon Cooks, man. He was the wide receiver 17 in fantasy points per game in 2020. Had a really good year, especially after the suspension of Will Fuller. Finished with 81 catches, 1,150 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Finds himself as probably far and away the best receiving option on his own team, especially when you consider Randall Cobb being traded. Going off the board, Greg, as the wide receiver 38, I think Cooks is a guy that will provide a steady weekly wide receiver 2 option with wide receiver 1 upside. He's been in the NFL for 7 years. Over the last 6 years, he's had 5 1,000-yard seasons with 4 different teams. My man has been productive. Now, to that point, his worst quarterback during that time was Jared Goff. He's had Drew Brees. He's had Tom Brady. He had Deshaun Watson. So he might have to deal with Tyrod Taylor for most of the year. So that's one negative. But the game script that this team will find themselves in should lead to some volume here for Brandon Cooks. And I think, again, he's a wide receiver. I think a wide receiver 3 is his floor, and he's being drafted below that right now as wide receiver 38.
Yeah, I like that a lot. With or without Deshaun, he's definitely going to be a productive wide receiver for that offense. Just so consistent throughout his career. I see no reason why he should drop from his ADP any year. He should be steady in what he is and what he does. Yes, that's a pretty good choice right there.
Greg, who is your sleeper for the fantasy people this year in 2021?
I'm gonna go with my man Tyler Boyd. You know that's my guy. We definitely had some debates about him last year, but he comes through and he got 110 targets last year. 79 receptions last year on those 110 targets. I think he's gonna get another over 100 targets this year with Joe Burrow. I think adding Jamar Chase just makes it kind of easier, opens up the field for him for all 3 of these guys. And Joe Burrow historically is always going to go throw to the slot. He's always going to see the slot guy. He had 4 touchdowns last year, and I think he gets around that mark this year. Tyler Boyd is the man, and the ADP is just kind of disrespectful to him. He's going wide receiver 39 in some drafts, round 8 and round 9. I have him as definitely higher than that as a top 30 play for sure. So I see no reason why he's definitely a sleeper in coming in. You gotta go get him, especially in full point PPR leagues. The receptions are going to be there, and who doesn't want over 100 target guy?
Yeah, Tyler Boyd. We definitely had some debates, but like we always do, Greg, we react to new information, right? The moment I see AJ Green is a corpse, that's not even to say he's a corpse, because I think he's going to actually be. Yeah,
he's going to do it. Yeah, where he's going to
do his thing in Arizona. But once I see that, hey, this is not the same AJ Green, and I see Tyler Boyd is doing his thing, I'm on board. And we talked about this. For me, it was either going to be Brandon Cooks or Tyler Boyd as my sleeper. And I see, obviously, you end up going with Tyler Boyd here.
Yes, sir.
And one of the things I like about the Tyler Boyd situation, and I think it's part of the reason why he's getting this discount, is because you look at the season total numbers, and Tyler Boyd was a guy getting, he had 110 targets in 15 games last year, did miss 1 game with an injury. But he's being drafted, I think, with that discount because Joe Burrow missed some time. And then you get Jamar Chase in there, which people think, probably cuts Tyler Boyd's production. But if you look at the 10 games at which he played with Joe Burrow, this guy was on a 16-game pace for 139 targets, 110 receptions, 1,136 yards, and 5 touchdowns compared to the the 16-game pace he had of 110 targets for 841 yards. And the season, the totals he had of 110 targets, 79 catches, 841 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So I think if you look at just the time he got to play with Joe Burrow, and really, like you said, how often Joe Burrow targeted him, 8.7 times per game, I think we know this is a 3 wide receiver offense. That's how they operate. They're going to spend 65% of their time in 11 personnel, meaning 1 running back, 1 tight end. And that there's opportunities here for all of these receivers to get over 1,000 yards, all 3 of them.
Yep. I'm all about the Tyler Boyd hype. We almost had a chance to draft him today, but I'm getting him as much drafts as I can.
Yeah, man. Again, I keep calling him a safe 100 for 1,000, 90 to 100 for 1,000, and I think it's pretty easy to kind of write that in for Tyler Boyd, assuming everybody stays healthy.
Yes, sir.
Moving on to the bust position, Greg, or the bust of the wide receiver position. And this guy, it's tough because I look at his ADP and I look at where I have him ranked, and I have him actually ranked slightly ahead of his ADP based on my projections. But when I'm picking in drafts, there's no chance that I'm going to take him at that spot. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking about Juju Smith-Schuster. I actually think, again, it's a pretty decent price, but I would just still be more interested and some other players that are going after him. And the reason I have Juju here as my bust is because he's one of 3 wide receivers on his team, and he's not even the leading target getter. Both of these guys, in Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, they have higher weekly upside than Juju Smith-Schuster. And he'll have an ADOT probably in line or lower than the tight ends on his own team. And when you consider that his role is an extension of the run game, which they made a point, the Steelers did, to upgrade with the addition of Najee Harris, that should lead to a dip in some of those targets in that area of the field. He's also made a lot of his money in the red zone, in which, again, he gets these manufactured touches. But I think the Steelers' run game getting back to normalcy will allow for some regression in that touchdown department. So, therefore, I won't have any Juju Smith-Schuster on my rosters this year.
Yeah, that's hilarious that you have Juju Smith-Schuster as your bust, because my bust is Deontay Johnson. It's kind of yeah. So because he's going wide receiver 20 in a lot of drafts at round 5 or 6. But I'm a big Chase Claypool fan. I have him actually projected to finish higher in the season than Deontay Johnson. I think he takes that leap.
Oh, sorry. I think you cut out for a second. My bad.
Oh, word. No, yeah, I think Chase Claypool makes that leap over, as the leading alpha dog in the wide receiver. You talk about they're going to run less. So the 144 targets that Deontay got last year, that was a very high rate. I think that comes down a little bit. And, he's going to wide receiver 20, who's over Chase Claypool. Chase Claypool is going wide receiver 27 right now. I think those could be flip-flopped. I just think he doesn't finish as a top 20 play. I still think he can finish as top 30 though. But just the offense is going to come down as far as targets. He dropped a lot of balls last year too as well. So if that continues, then he's probably not going to get the same high production that he got last year.
Yeah, this is probably the first take you have that I just don't agree with, Greg. Deontay Johnson is one of my guys. But, I started out the season because if you look at the season-long numbers, Deontay Johnson it doesn't look great, right? Because he had 144 targets, 15 games. But then you got to remember Deontay Johnson, not only did he miss 1 game, but there were a bunch of games where he left early. And so if you actually take those games out, Deontay Johnson was on a ridiculous pace of like 180-something targets. It was stupid. It would have been a league leader. So I think the 140 targets is probably somewhere close to his floor. I got him down for 160 targets. And so I think that he's still, I agree, while Chase Claypool will have more upside and will have probably some touchdown production, which, could, again, steal. I think in half PPR, I think you definitely have a point. I think in full, I'm still taking Deontay Johnson because if he's going to get those targets that I'm expecting him to, then, I think that he's easy in the top 20. But I could see your points, though, on Deontay Johnson, because initially I did have him outside my top 20 until I dug in more a little bit on the games in which he didn't complete.
Right. Yeah. It's just also the number of attempts I think are going to go down for Ben. We know that's going to happen, and then just Ben also could be also just regressing as a quarterback. So just the production level, I think for Chase, I think it leans more towards him.
But to that point, right? If Ben regresses, then everyone's going to take a hit.
Yeah, everyone is going to take it. Yeah.
And I think the person who takes the least hit in that is Deontay Johnson because of the role that he plays. You know, he's where Chase Claypool is the down the field threat. I think Deontay Johnson is kind of like foolproof, and we saw. And that's not to say like I don't think Chase Claypool. I think Chase Claypool is going to be fine, and I don't really care for Juju Smith-Schuster, but we saw in the Hall of Fame game, obviously, you know, it's preseason, but Mason Rudolph is just targeting Chase Claypool almost relentlessly. So I think you might be onto something here. I will admit I won't have a lot of Deontay Johnson outside of like dynasty leagues where I have him, just because there's some guys that we'll get into a little bit later who I'm really trying to make sure that I'm getting on my rosters. And speaking of, let's move on to the breakout here.
Mm-hmm.
And if you see behind me, oh, sorry, wrong segment. But the breakout here, wrong segment, my bad. But my breakout wide receiver for 2021 is CeeDee Lamb. He was my favorite rookie wide receiver entering the NFL draft, and he was the third wide receiver drafted. His rookie season was pretty good considering the circumstances. 111 targets, which he turned into 74 catches, 935 yards, and 5 touchdowns. He was the wide receiver 35 in PPR points per game at 13.2. But if you look at those first 5 games of the season in which CeeDee Lamb got to play with Dak Prescott, he was on a 16-game pace of 128 targets, 93 catches, 1,386 yards, and 6 touchdowns. During that span, he was the wide receiver 11 in PPR points per game, averaging 17.1 PPR points as a rookie. Lamb is going to be a player that next year we are taking in the first 2 rounds of fantasy drafts. Right now, he's going at the end of the third round in 12 team 1 quarterback leagues, and pay up because right now this is the cheapest price this dude will be for a very, very long time.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. We drafted today in the belly of bowl. We got CeeDee Lamb. I'm happy about that. Yeah, it's going to be an epic year for him. You already know he got that hard knocks. Hopefully, good juju in him. No pun intended. So he can get it going early in the year and start off at an insane rate with Dak Prescott. I think he starts to take that lead dog role in targets and compete with Amari Cooper for that role.
I know you haven't watched Hard Knocks yet.
I have not watched the first episode yet. No.
CeeDee Lamb, what you should have said instead of Juju was Mojo, and you'll totally get it. You'll totally get it. But CeeDee Lamb, what I was nodding my head no as you were talking about him for those that can't see because you're listening on podcast. But if you are listening on podcast, you could stop listening right now and go watch on YouTube. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and make sure you just if you want to see Greg, he's got his dreads growing in. Or you want to see this beautiful studio that I've put together for y'all, then you got to check us out on YouTube. But if not, you want to continue listening on podcasts, there's nothing wrong with that. We're not here to judge, right? Live your life, but just make sure you subscribe if you're going to listen to us. And please, we would really appreciate a rate and review. Now, after that shameless plug, if you weren't listening, if you weren't watching, the reason I was nodding my head no as you talked about CeeDee Lamb getting that good Hard Knocks juju, or I like to say mojo for reasons you'll later find out. But I don't want him to get the Hard Knocks bump. Like
no, oh yeah, that's getting his hype up. You're right.
Right? He's on Hard Knocks. He's getting screen time. People are gonna see, right? And then the ADP just
of course,
of course. I don't want to see that. Last year was Keenan Allen.
Yep.
Austin Eckler got a little Hard Knocks bump too.
Yep.
I'm not trying to deal with that this year, man. I just want to get CeeDee Lamb priced appropriately, and just have fun with it.
Yeah,
but Greg, who is your Yes, sir. Who is your breakout wide receiver for 2021, Greg?
I was thinking of CeeDee Lamb, but I think off the fact that I kind of down Deontay Johnson a little bit, I got to go with my man Chase Claypool. He's going to have to break out for me to, help me with that argument, getting up there. I think he's going to be definitely a top 20 play this year. Maybe top 15. This man is going to beast out. I think, especially in the touchdown mark, he's going to get. I think I got projecting for 10 touchdowns. I think he reaches that number this year and continues to get down the field and battles with Deontay Johnson for that target lead. I got him at 122 targets. So Chase Claypool is going to be doing what he has to do, developing, getting better. And yeah, I think he's going to be the steady guy for Ben Roethlisberger and kind of the change of the guard a little bit.
I like that, man. I mean, you're betting on the alpha here, alpha profile here. You're taking a page out of the DK Metcalf mold. This is kind of what you were doing last year, and it's not a bad strategy to have. And I'm not even going to argue with it because and I kept saying it when we were talking about Deontay Johnson. I really like Chase Claypool.
Oh yeah,
I really like the physical ability he has. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about we haven't seen a guy physically like him since Calvin Johnson. If you look at the combine numbers, the size, 6'4", 240 pounds, ran 4.4 in the 40-yard dash, had a 40-inch vertical jump. I mean, we saw Calvin Johnson get inducted into the Hall of Fame this past weekend, and not saying that Chase Claypool is that, but that's the comp, right? And so Chase Claypool definitely has all the physical ability in the world. I definitely look. I'm not going to – Chase Claypool is the kind of player you don't bet against, right? Because of all the physical ability he has. You just don't bet against that player. So right. I'm not even gonna talk about there won't be any change of the guard here because it's definitely possible, especially if he gets into that double-digit touchdown number again, which he did do as a rookie last year. So saw him on NFL Network. They asked him how many touchdowns he's trying to score this year. He said maybe like 15.
Okay. Nah, that's what we talking right there. That's round one material right there.
Yeah, I mean, if Chase Claypool goes out there, I mean, I know you said you have him at 122 targets. I've got him sitting here at 129. So we're in a similar ballpark here. I think Chase Claypool he can make a lot happen with these targets. He's a big physical guy. He's going to have a high A-dot. He can also make plays after the catch. We saw them use him on end arounds last year, which he scored rushing touchdowns on. So, yeah, I'm definitely in agreement with you, Chase Claypool for a breakout year. Let's move on to my guys, and now I get to talk about the guy behind me.
There we go.
If you don't know about the guy behind me, you're not watching on YouTube. I'm talking about Brandon Iuke, man, and I literally have not stopped talking about Brandon Iuke since the 2020 NFL draft. I had to make sure I say that correctly. But he was one of my favorite wide receivers in the 2020 class. It was unpopular at the time, but he was my wide receiver 5 in rookie drafts last year. And that was mainly due to the fact that he was the number one ranked wide receiver in my prospect model for 2020. He ranks inside the 99th percentile as a prospect of all wide receivers over the last 4 seasons. And he did have a really good rookie season. There were some injuries in the 49ers offense that, led to Iuke leading the Niners in targets with 96 in just 12 games, which he turned into 60 catches, 748 yards and 5 touchdowns, along with 77 rushing touchdowns and 77 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. His 16-game pace was just 3 yards shy of a 1,000-yard season. He was the wide receiver 18 in PPR points per game at 15.4. I think he can end up leading the 49ers in targets, even with the healthy George Kittle, include a healthy Jimmy Garoppolo and a talented rookie quarterback in Trey Lance. I think Iuke takes a major leap, and I'm doing whatever I can to get him on my rosters.
Nah, I totally agree with you. I got him for 142 targets. This man's going to lead the 49ers in targets. You can book that. This man is a beast. And don't forget, just dynamic, working with Kyle Shanahan, getting those rushing attempts as well. He's just everywhere, man. Brandon Iuke is a beast.
Yeah, man. I mean, we like we talked about with the belly up team, or not belly up, the St. Jude team. I gotta
St. Jude
stop
too.
saying
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
St.
I
Jude
thought it was a
Bowl,
belly up too, but yeah, you're right. St. Jude,
St. Jude
CeeDee
Bowl,
Lamb, and Brandon Ayuk. You already
and Brandon
know, man.
Ayuk.
Woo,
So
woo, it's
like, I
over.
don't even.
It's a
I just
problem,
stopped
man.
drafting. I don't even have to do anything anymore. But not because I don't want to, just because I'm physically incapable of drafting because my body's so weak from the excitement. But Greg, I need to know you're my guy. The people need to know you're my guy for 2021 at the wide receiver position.
You already know, man. Cue the music, cue the Kenny G. We're gonna play that saxophone. My man Kenny G, Kenny Gallaudet. You already know. The moment that man signed the dotted line on the New York Giants, putting on his uniform, he became my guy. And I know he's gonna be one of the most productive, wide receivers we've seen since Odell Beckham Jr. He might have a comparable year, if not better, than what Odell did. I got him for going for about 124 targets. This man's going to get close to 1,300 yards. He's going to be a beast, and that's what Kenny Gallaudet does. For Danny Dimes, hopefully making him a better quarterback in his career, in his last probably final year. As far as like evaluation for Danny Dimes, if this is it for Daniel Jones. If not, we got some first round picks and we're ready to move on. So Kenny Gallaudet is going to be a big help in that, getting down the field and being back to what he was 2 years ago, healthy, dogging with Matt Stafford.
Yeah, man. I don't know what it is about this wide receiver group, but I was this close to putting Kenny Gallaudet down as my bust.
Wow.
Like this close.
Wow.
Like this close.
Oh,
but then
man.
I remember that I did that like 2 years ago and I had like
that's true
heartburn and acid reflux trying to make that decision. So I just knocked it. No, I like Kenny G, but I just like the Giants, Jason Garrett, like Daniel Jones, they don't excite me. And
I know.
And look, Kenny G might be fine. Like he might be fine. Like I was on a live stream yesterday for the Polly's Podathon, and we talked about Kenny G versus T. Higgins, and like someone had drafted, and I guess they drafted Kenny Gallaudet over T. Higgins, but I was like, I would rather have T. Higgins as my wide receiver 2, and then Kenny Gallaudet in my flex. But I don't think Kenny G is bad. I just don't I'm not in love with the situation. I think he'll have these spike weeks and he'll have these other weeks where it's like there's not much going on, and that could be, you call him Danny Dimes, but he hasn't been Danny Dimes since like his rookie year. So he's on. When I refer to him,
it's his third year.
He'll go as Daniel. He'll be Daniel Jones.
It's his third year. It wasn't that long ago.
No, of course. Which is funny, right? Because I say this all the time, and I don't mean to say anything when I say the stat. It's just a factual stat. Daniel Jones's rookie year and Justin Herbert's rookie year, they both had the same touchdown rate, 5.2%. It's factual. Do with that information what you must, but don't shoot the messenger. But yeah, nah, man, I don't hate it. I just don't love Daniel Jones.
You're not the first person to say like the Giants in general are like probably one of the more boring team to watch. Like they just straight up I formation all the time. Just do the everything the prototypical like NFL from the 60s way. Like it just I hope Kenny G electrifies it a little bit. Get some. No,
I think he will, man. I think he brings a good component. If anything, he helps my Saquon Barkley because we get some more space for Saquon to move around a little bit. But let's jump into some ADP game, and I think this is gonna be full of debates. I purposely kind of put some of them that way, starting with Terry McLaurin, who's going off the board, Greg, as the wide receiver 10. Round 304, pick 304 in 12-team leagues, according to 4for4.com's multi-site ADP. And then Mike Evans going off the board, wide receiver 13, going off the board as 311. I'll let you go first, Greg. I know you have Terry McLaurin as your wide receiver 10, so this is pretty much in your price point.
Yeah, it's right there. I'm willing to buy it. Just Terry McLaurin's gonna, not only lead this team in targets, but it's not even gonna be close. And Ryan Fitzpatrick is just one of those guys I think just force feeds players, and there's gonna be games where he's going to just literally throw it to Terry McLaurin, possession after possession. I'm willing to buy the price. Mike Evans I have as a top 15 play still. He's still gonna do what he has to do in that very high potent offense. It's just the realm of outcomes. This is a lot of mouths to feed in Tampa, and we have AB now with a full season, so we never know how that might impact Mike Evans. I'm willing to buy Terry McLaurin. I know what he's going to give me.
Yeah, I think it's funny, right? Because I have Terry McLaurin right outside my top 12, and it's again, how I feel about Terry McLaurin.
Oh yeah,
him and Calvin Ridley, both my co-breakouts last year. So I expected a little bit more from Terry last year. We didn't get it, but I think Terry, like you said, will lead this team in targets. I don't think it's close. While Ryan Fitzpatrick will force feed his wide receiver one, like you mentioned, I think that there's also more weapons around where Terry McLaurin was literally, it was him and Logan and J.D. McKissick, and that was it in terms of targets in the pass game. Where I think with Diami Brown, Curtis Samuel, Adam Humphries, I think there's more pieces around where they won't need to force feed Terry. I still think he does lead this team in targets by a wide margin. And so I think when I look at it that way, Mike Evans, though, I think while, like you said, he's competing with these other guys, I think the touchdown production is his.
Yeah.
I think that belongs to Mike Evans. And so for that reason alone, I have Mike Evans ranked ahead of Terry McLaurin, but it's definitely really close. I mean, 10 versus 13, it's definitely close. But
PPR league too, Terry's gonna get probably more receptions. Yeah,
that's the thing. Like PPR league, you know that the receptions are probably going to be with Terry.
Right.
We saw Mike Evans have a 1 catch for 1 yard for 1 touchdown game last year.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Terry's never going to do that.
No.
So they're in the same tier. Let me just put it that way. They're in the same tier, but that point alone might lead me towards Terry. But it also depends on what you have on your roster, right? Because we always say this, Greg, you kind of have to build your wide receiver core in a way like you don't want guys with all ceilings because you want to have a weekly floor, but you don't want guys with all floors because you want to have some weekly upside. So how do you pair these guys? Maybe you pair Mike Evans with a guy that has a safer floor. Maybe you pair Terry McLaurin with the guy that has a higher ceiling, and maybe you approach it that way. But I will say, maybe it's a hot take. People have seen, if you see my top 40, which I put out maybe 3 weeks ago, my top 40 PPR rankings, I have Brandon Iuke ahead of Terry McLaurin.
Hey, man, that means you have him in your top 12, I would assume.
He's wide receiver 13.
Wide receiver, okay, right there. Yeah, I mean, Brandon Iuke's a beast. Like I have him I actually have him right at 18, so 17. So yeah, he's gonna be right there. He's a dynamic player. The 15 to 20 guys is just it's all they're gonna all.
I mean, look, we're like all these guys that we're talking about could. Yeah. I mean, the guys that we spoke about before, they all could finish as wide receiver 1. I mean, you could go from Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, Calvin Ridley, Justin Jefferson, DeAndre Hopkins. Like all of these guys can be the wide receiver 1. Yep. And then you have a bunch of guys that can get into the top 10 because of anything.
Yep.
Right? Because touchdowns, because maybe there's an injury, maybe they had a favorable schedule. Like anything could lead these guys in the top 10. So we're sitting here, as we sit here debating it, like the range of outcomes is nearly eerily similar for a lot of these guys when you look at what the year end total will be. Let's talk about a pair of teammates though. Rams wide receivers. Robert Woods, wide receiver 14 as the 312. Cooper Kupp, wide receiver 20, going off as 501. Greg, which one of these guys do you prefer at their ADP? I know the answer, but I know the people need to know.
I mean, yeah, I do love Robert Woods. I do love him a lot. But in my rankings, I do have him closer than that. So if you're gonna make me have to buy one, I have Robert Woods over Cooper Kupp by literally 1 spot. But ADP wise, if they're separated by 6, I'm gonna just take the value deal here and probably just take Cooper Kupp, who I think is gonna finish higher. Of course, I'm gonna take Robert Woods, but wide receiver 20, I didn't think he would be that low for around 5. The amount of targets that Cooper Kupp's gonna get, and he's gonna be beast. The production and it's not going to fall off at all. If not, it's going to get better with Matt Stafford. So I think I wanted to buy that Cooper Kupp. You're getting a top 15 receiver, I think, for wide receiver 20.
Yeah, I've got Cooper Kupp. So actually, I actually have Terry at 15. I might move him one spot ahead of Cooper Kupp, but I've got Cooper Kupp as my wide receiver 14 right now. But he's in my top 15. Let's just say that.
Right.
Robert is one or two spots behind him. And for me, when I think about it, I mean, again, this is pretty easy for me. I'm taking Cooper Kupp at the price, right? At the price,
right?
Oh, and as the player, not you know what I mean, not the player, but like,
yeah.
At the end of the day, what I think it comes down to is I think Cooper Kupp he's getting a fact that he had just 3 touchdowns last year and a horrid Rams offense. I think that's being held against him this year. Whereas in other years, we would be drafting Cooper Kupp ahead of Robert Woods. Maybe you wouldn't be. I know last year you had it pretty much the same way as do I have it this way. Whereas like you would be drafting Cooper Kupp. Your argument for Cooper Kupp over Robert Woods would be touchdowns.
Right.
And like that would be the argument, like, oh, they're going to end up with the same amount of targets. Cooper Kupp's going to get the touchdowns.
Yep.
And I think that the 3 touchdown season that Cooper Kupp had, which 3 touchdowns, I mean, I don't even have to look, but I will to make sure I'm telling people correct information. But that's got to be a career low for Cooper Kupp, who's had double-digit touchdowns since he had 3 touchdowns. He had 10 last year in 16 games. He had 6 the year before that in 8 games. I mean, his rookie year he had 5 in 15 games. So 3 in 15 games. That's, to me, that's the outlier there for Cooper Kupp. And I think we get him back into that double-digit touchdown range that he had last year, and he was on pace for, or not last year, but in 2019, and he was on pace for in 2018. So for that alone, I think Cooper Kupp's the value this year.
Yeah, I have him for 8 touchdowns this year. I literally have these guys separated by 5 points, so I'm gonna take Cooper Kupp if they're about the same receiver as stats. But yeah, Robert was. I want to take that, that bet though. Who's gonna finish first? Finish higher.
I could do that. I literally have for the same amount of targets. I've got Cooper Kupp with 9 touchdowns, Robert Woods with just under 7.
Got it.
So, all right, Greg, let's get on to another one.
Hmm?
And this one I don't think has any implications, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. Amari Cooper, wide receiver 15, going off as the 401. And then Julio Jones as the wide receiver 16, going off as the 404. What do you got here?
I'm gonna go with Julio. I like Julio. Let's not forget this is one of the greatest receivers we still I've seen in my lifetime. I think he's still a beast, and I think having AJ Brown, as long as he stays healthy, and that's the case for everybody, he's going to be on the field. He's going to be producing, and to think that he's in a different situation where he could get more touchdowns. If you tell me that, then sign me up for Julio. But I think he's going to be other round because CeeDee Lamb's going to break out more. I think Julio gets more targets and more receptions than Amari Cooper. So I'm on board with buying Julio Jones for sure.
Yeah, it's funny, man. I don't like Julio is one of the toughest players for me to rank because I obviously love AJ Brown. He was my ride or die last year. I basically professed my love to him the year before at the end of 2019, but giving targets to Julio means taking them away. I mean, I think these are both guys because Anthony Ferguson, this is going to be a 2 wide receiver offense, and I think both these guys are going to see similar targets, but it's just tough for me to rank Julio because there's other guys like
I've got Cooper for more receptions. I have Julio for more targets, but the touchdowns is where the separation is. I think Julio gets his touchdowns up a little bit this year. So
I've got Amari Cooper wide receiver 19. I've got Julio wide receiver 22. And I know it's really low for Julio because I look at industry-wide rankings and everybody's so high on Julio, and I'm like, am I that down on Julio?
I mean, if your guy Tannehill's gonna, be that guy, I think both of them can definitely thrive. And
But we're used to seeing Julio with like a 30% target share.
Right. That's
right?
definitely
It's not gonna happen.
No, that's definitely not gonna happen.
Right. So and that's where I come from. And I just think, to your point about the situations, I think Amari Cooper is going to see more volume, because this pass offense in Dallas, I mean, I know they'll probably try to be a little bit more balanced, but they're gonna throw the football 600 times. I mean, more than 600 times. Ryan Tannehill and them, they'll be lucky to get over, to get into 500. 500.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I look at the volume there, the volume of pass attempts, I mean, look, I know we love CeeDee, and I know I love CeeDee Lamb. I'll speak for myself on this. And I don't. If there's one player I don't want on my fantasy team, it's Amari Cooper. But Amari Cooper, to me, is a value this year because of CeeDee Lamb, right? Because, again, we have to tell ourselves these stories. But if I believe, what if we're wrong about CeeDee? Not if we're wrong about CeeDee Lamb, but what if that breakout year just isn't this year? And what if it's like something similar to last year where they're both dead even? And then you're getting Amari Cooper as wide receiver 15, when realistically he was, if you look at the games with Dak, the first 4 games of the season, he was on pace for being a wide receiver 1.
Right.
Amari Cooper was. So the range of outcomes is really wide with Amari Cooper. So, and I think that, like, obviously Julio could be the wide receiver 1 because he's Julio Jones, but he has AJ Brown on his team. Like, will he beat out AJ Brown? Will Julio even be the best wide receiver on his team?
Oh, I don't think so. But you could say the same for Amari Cooper too.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah, you could.
It's close. It's a pick'em. The ADP you put out is basically a pick'em. So I'll take Julio, just above Amari Cooper.
Yeah, I'm just gonna take Amari Cooper because of volume, and I can't believe we'll scrub this out from the podcast. We'll take it off the internet so nobody can ever say that I wanted to draft Amari Cooper. But the next one we have here, and I didn't even plan this. I didn't know Kenny Gallaudet was gonna be my guy here, but I did think it was funny and interesting.
Love in here.
Yeah, I had to do it. Oh, you had to do it, but I had to do what I did with the ADP game here. Thought it would be really, triggering.
I know, that's crazy. There's a lot of Giants love right here. This is crazy. Oh, man.
But Kenny Gallaudet, the wide receiver 28, going off as the 606, 6 picks in 6 rounds, the 6th pick in the 6th round, or Odell Beckham Jr., the wide receiver 9, going off as the wide receiver 29, going off as the 7th pick in the 6th round. Which of these guys, Greg, do you prefer at their ADPs?
Yeah, I'm definitely on the Kenny G train just because I think he just gets more targets per game. The Cleveland Browns Odell is definitely not the New York Giants Odell. Not to say not skills wise or anything. Just this is a different team. This is a different offense as far as they focus on running the football. And it's hard for me see Odell getting like a 10 target game any game. Like I just, it's hard for me to see that for him doing that this time, in his career and with this team. I think he's going to probably get around that 7 mark. And that's like 8 is I think a high side. So I think just the production is not going to be as much there for OBJ as it is for Kenny G.
Yeah, I actually have Odell Beckham as inside my top 24. He's my wide receiver 24.
Okay.
I think he is going to be the clear-cut wide receiver 1 for the Cleveland Browns.
Absolutely.
I think, we saw him get 8 targets, 9 targets, 10 targets. He had 2 6-target games through the first 7 weeks. So I think he will continue to be the clear-cut guy for the Browns. I mean, when you look at who they throw the football to, it's literally Odell and then the tight ends and then Kareem Hunt. Yep. So I think that he continues to be that guy. I have more faith in Baker Mayfield and Kevin Stefanski than I will have in Daniel Jones. And I have almost no faith in Jason Garrett. I just want to throw that out there. I never was at any point do I have any faith in Jason Garrett. But for that reason, I do agree with what you're saying. Some of the stuff you're saying, though, I think at this point in their careers, Kenny Gallaudet probably has some more juice in the tank. But Odell Beckham, he's a wide receiver that he wins he definitely, obviously, in earlier years, won on athleticism and his big playability, but he's a fantastic route runner. He's got phenomenal hands, and I think that he's somebody that is going to continue to win, even as he continues to age. And so I think, the only question with Odell is how's he going to recover? I mean, he's had the sports hernia. Now you're dealing with the ACL. I mean, everything out of camp, he looks good.
Oh yeah, the timing seems to be going good with Baker. I think he's definitely gonna have a bounce back year for sure. It's just, I know a lot of calls last year too were taken back because of offsides and holdings and stuff like that. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting for him.
Yeah, definitely, man. And the last and final one, Mike Williams, the wide receiver, 48, and Corey Davis, the wide receiver, 53. Mike Williams going off as 10:07. Corey Davis going off at 11:06. Greg, which one of these guys do you prefer at their ADPs? You're on mute, Greg.
This is definitely a pretty good one because, I think both of these guys are going to have a pretty, a good year. But I'm going to go with Corey Davis, as far as role. Corey Davis is going to be the top dog for this Jets options, I think. Mike Williams is going to be the number 2, but that still is going to demand a lot of targets because, you're getting targets from the Herb. But production-wise, Corey Davis coming off his, one of a pretty solid career year yards-wise, I think continues that and, continues with his touchdowns. I'm willing to buy Corey Davis.
Yeah, I'm totally with you here. For me, I think initially probably had Corey Davis a little bit lower in my rankings, but I've recently bumped him up with especially news coming out of Jets camp that he is Zach Wilson's go-to guy. Obviously there's been a lot of Elijah Moore buzz, but I think the steady Eddie in this offense, in this Jets offense, will be Corey Davis. I think he'll be a weekly wide receiver too. I think, like I've been saying this about Corey Davis, where he'll have these wide receiver 2 type weeks on a week-to-week basis. It's going to be really steady, like you said, coming off the breakout year last year. Mike Williams, to me, he's more of like that upside guy that I'm looking for later in the drafts. But for me at this point, give me a guy that can get to 100 targets, and Corey Davis has that. I think Mike Williams could be that, but there's just more questions, especially, if you're looking at it from a contract perspective. Mike Williams is a guy who's on the last year. Corey Davis is a guy who just got paid. And so, there's no guarantee that Mike Williams has a future in LA. They drafted Josh Palmer. They have 2 other guys behind him in Tyron Johnson and Jalen Guyton, who performed well last year when Mike Williams missed time. And so I think Corey Davis is going to continue to be the wide receiver 1 here for the Jets.
The contract make people hungry though. Usually when people get paid, they get, probably like quote unquote fat, they start to settle a little bit. So that could help Mike Williams a little bit. But yeah, I'm with you on getting Corey Davis, definitely being that top guy in targets for the Jets and new quarterback Zach Wilson.
Yes, sir. Well, we don't have any more ADP game to play, and we don't have any more time to play any ADP game anyway. So that being said, everyone, we appreciate y'all. We love y'all. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you check us out on Saturday when we drop the tight end breakdown, the final of our positional breakdowns. So don't want to miss that. Hey, again, just like last week, you don't agree with anything we said, you like what we said, let us know down in the comments below. And, make sure you're following us, the show, specifically on Twitter and Instagram at FF Diagnostics. Make sure you're checking out Greg, who just recently got on Twitter at @gmoney_truth. So, and obviously you have the rest of our handles here below if you're watching on YouTube. But if you're not, I'll say it one time for you if you're listening. I'm at JR Football Nerd on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And on TikTok, Greg is at @we_made_it on Instagram. Everybody, we appreciate y'all, and we'll talk to y'all on Saturday.
Peace. Yeah.